chosen one. There are moments in the life of a person when the instruction from heaven is not a whisper. It is a clear and settled word that arrives in the center of your chest before it arrives in your mind. Today that word is this: sit down. Not because something is wrong, not because you need to brace yourself for bad news, but because what is moving in your direction right now is too large to receive while you are still standing in the small version of what you thought your life was. You did not land on this message by accident. I want you to understand that completely. The force that arranged the timing of stars and the migration patterns of birds and the moment in history that you were born into is the same force that moved your attention here today. That is not poetic language. That is a description of a very specific divine appointment that was written long before this day arrived. I am going to speak to the chosen one who has been carrying the weight of a long season, the one who kept showing up even when the evidence was not cooperating, the one who chose faith over and over again in rooms where nobody was watching. You are not the chosen one who is waiting to become something. You are the chosen one standing on the edge of a reversal so significant that the only right response when you hear it described is to sit down and let it settle. This is not for the general crowd. This is for the specific person who has felt for weeks or months or years that something enormous was being prepared just out of view, something that no current circumstance could explain and no current evidence could confirm. But the feeling would not leave, the sense that something massive was being arranged, something that would require you to have stayed exactly where you stayed and endured exactly what you endured. That feeling is not wishful thinking. That feeling is a divine preview of an approaching reality. And today, in this message, I am going to walk with you through what it means, what it requires, and what is already in motion. There are 5 signs that confirm this message is specifically for you, not for everyone who came here, for you. And I want to go through each one carefully, because each sign carries its own weight and its own confirmation. The first sign is this: for some time now, you have been carrying a feeling that something is about to change, but you have not been able to name exactly what. It is not attached to any specific event you are planning or any specific prayer you made last week. It is deeper than that. It is a knowing that exists in the body before it exists in the mind. A low hum that says things are shifting, even when the surface of your life looks exactly the same as it did 6 months ago. If that is true for you, that is not imagination. That is the signature of heaven, landing on a receiver before the signal arrives in full. The second sign is something more difficult to admit. In the season leading up to right now, some things in your life were taken away or ended in ways that did not feel clean or earned. Relationships that changed without your permission. Opportunities that seemed to close before you could step through them. Resources that did not stretch as far as you needed them to. At the time, those losses felt like punishment or confusion. But loss that arrives just before a massive incoming is not punishment. It is God clearing the field, removing what cannot survive the weight of what is coming. The very things that were taken were the things that would have been obstacles to the arrival. The third sign is in your inner life. Your dreams have changed. Your sense of spiritual awareness has been heightened. You may have been waking at unusual hours with an unusual clarity. You may have noticed that scripture or messages or conversations have been carrying more weight than usual, as if they were personally addressed to you. That is because they are. When the internal landscape begins to shift before the external landscape catches up, that is the signal that something is being prepared at the root level before it manifests at the surface. The fourth sign is this: in recent weeks or months, you have had moments, brief and unexpected, of extraordinary clarity. Moments where your mind felt fully present and sharp and connected in a way that your daily experience does not always match. You may have dismissed those moments as random good days, but they were not random, they were previews. They were your mind briefly touching the frequency of where you are going before the full arrival happens. The clarity you felt in those flashes is the clarity that is coming to stay. The fifth sign is the simplest and the most certain. You are here, right now, listening. Every decision that led you to this moment, including the ones that looked like mistakes, moved you in the right direction. The person who was not meant for this message left a long time ago. You stayed. That staying is not an accident, it is a pattern. And that pattern is one of the clearest indicators that the massive thing approaching is approaching specifically for you. Now I want to pause and hold something in front of you before we continue. Over the past several years, something has been discovered in scientific research that most people who care deeply about the things we have been discussing have never been told about. Not because it contradicts anything sacred, because it came from a direction most of us are not watching. A small group of neuroscientists led by a doctor in New York who has spent decades studying this found something about the way the human mind is designed that explains something most spiritually sensitive people have felt for years, but could never fully name. Something so fundamental, it connects back to a Nobel Prize, yet so straightforward in its application that it sounds almost too simple at first. I'm going to tell you what they found later in this message. But right now, hold this question. What if the reason your mind sometimes feels foggy or slow or disconnected from the sharpness you know is inside you is not a character flaw, not a spiritual failure, not age, but something with a very specific cause and a very specific solution? Hold that question. We will return to it. God does not prepare a massive thing without first preparing the person who is going to receive it. Every pattern in sacred history confirms this. The preparation always precedes the provision. The formation always comes before the fullness. And the length of the formation season is always proportionate to the magnitude of what is being prepared. Think about what that means for you. Think about the length of your formation. Think about the weight of what you have been carrying. Think about the years that felt like waiting and the seasons that felt like wilderness. If the preparation was this long and this deep, then what is coming is proportionate to all of it. You do not form a person at this depth to give them a small reward. You form a person at this depth because what is coming requires a container that has been shaped and stretched and strengthened beyond what ordinary life would ever produce. The season you have been in has not been wasted. Not a single day of it. Not a single prayer that felt like it hit the ceiling. Not a single night when you held on with the thinnest possible thread of faith. All of it was working. Not always in the way you could see, but working. And now that season is completing. Not slowly, the way a harvest completes, the way a door opens, the way dawn arrives, decisively, finally, massively. God told Abraham to look at the stars. He told him to count them if he could. He was not asking Abraham to admire the sky. He was asking Abraham to expand his capacity to receive. You cannot hold a blessing larger than your belief that it is possible. And today, this message is an invitation to expand, to stop looking only at what is in front of you and start looking at what is above you and around you and approaching you from a direction you have not been watching. What is coming is already in motion. It was set in motion long before this message, long before this day. The arrival is not contingent on your perfection. It is not delayed by your doubt. It has been set in motion by a covenant that was made on your behalf before you were born, and it is moving toward you with the kind of certainty that does not require your belief to continue. But your belief does determine what you are able to receive when it arrives. There is a difference between a blessing arriving and a blessing being received. Heaven can send something toward you, and you can still miss it. Not because God took it back, because you were not positioned to recognize it when it arrived, because the receiver that was designed to register its frequency was operating below its capacity. And that is something we are going to address very specifically as this message continues. God does not send the instruction to sit down to people who are in the middle of the crowd. He sends it to individuals. He spoke it to Elijah when he had run as far as he could and collapsed under a tree in exhaustion. He spoke it to Jacob when he was left alone after sending everything he had across the river. He speaks it now to you, because what is about to happen in your life is not a group event. It is a personal appointment between you and the God who has been watching every chapter of your story and who has now determined that the moment of the turn has come. What this means practically is that the version of yourself you are about to become will not look like a gradual improvement on who you are right now. It will look like a different order of life entirely. Different in what you understand, different in what you have access to, different in the clarity with which you are able to move through decisions that used to feel impossible. The shift that is approaching is not a small adjustment. It is the kind of shift that people around you will notice before you fully believe it yourself. For now, understand this. You are in a moment of transition so significant that the period before it and the period after it will look like two completely different lives. The person on the other side of what is about to happen will look back on this day and understand why it was necessary to sit down and be still and listen, because what is coming did not arrive to interrupt your life. It came to complete it. It came to vindicate the years. It came to confirm that you were not wrong to hold on. And the fullness of what it carries is greater than anything your current circumstances have allowed you to imagine. There are three identities that the chosen one carries, and most people who carry them have not been given names for what they are. They have felt the weight of each identity without understanding the assignment that comes with it. Naming them changes something. It turns a burden into a calling. The first is the forerunner. The forerunner is the one who arrives somewhere before there is a path. The one who enters a new territory in their family line or their community or their field, not because someone showed them the way, but because they were assigned to be the one who makes the way for those who come after. The forerunner often feels alone, not because they are abandoned, but because they are ahead. The very isolation that has felt like a wound is actually a function. The silence around you is not the silence of rejection. It is the silence of open ground, ground that has not been walked before, ground that your feet are the first to touch. There is a loneliness that belongs to the forerunner that no ordinary community can fully satisfy, because the forerunner is living in a chapter that has not been written yet in the shared experience of those around them. And that loneliness, as painful as it has been, was the price of the assignment. The ones who will follow you into what you are pioneering will not feel that loneliness. They will have a path. They will have your example. They will have proof that it is possible. But you are the one who had to walk into it first, without proof, without a map, on the strength of a calling that only made sense inside you. The second identity is the cycle breaker. The cycle breaker is the one who was placed at a specific junction in a generational line to interrupt a pattern that had been running for decades or generations before them. Every difficulty you have faced that seemed disproportionate to your choices had a second function. It was surfacing a root. It was bringing into the light something that had been underground in your family for a long time, something that had to be named and addressed before the next generation could walk free of it. You did not only live your own life in this season, you carried something heavier than your own story. And the carrying was not a mistake. The carrying was the assignment. The cycle breaker does not get the luxury of a soft entry into adulthood. They arrive at the place where the pattern lives, and they feel its full weight before they dismantle it. That is because you cannot break a cycle you have never encountered. You had to feel the full force of it. You had to understand from the inside what it does to a person. And that understanding is not a wound you carry forward. That understanding is the wisdom you use to ensure that no one in the generation behind you ever has to feel it again. The third identity is the deep root. The deep root is the tree that cannot be moved because it has gone down further than anything in the visible landscape would suggest. You have been through winds that should have uprooted you, seasons of drought that should have dried you out, pressures that left marks, and you are still here. That is not resilience in the ordinary sense. That is a root system that was built underground during all the years you thought nothing was happening. And deep roots are what support the weight of massive fruit. You do not hang heavy fruit on a shallow tree. The depth that was developed in you was necessary. It was intentional, and it is about to become visible in what it bears. Now, I want to speak about the force that has been working against the arrival of what God has prepared for you, because nothing significant comes without resistance. And the resistance you have faced has a specific character that is worth naming clearly. The first form that resistance takes is the voice of smallness. This is not the voice of an enemy outside you. This is the internal voice that has learned from years of disappointment and delayed arrival to protect you by keeping your expectations low. It says things like, "This does not happen for people like me," or "The massive things happen for other people, people with more advantages, people with better circumstances, people with more visible gifts." That voice is not wisdom. That voice is a defense mechanism that has outlived its usefulness. And in the season you are entering, that voice does not get to make the decisions. The second form of resistance is something I want you to recognize very specifically, because it has a pattern that repeats in the stories of nearly every chosen one before the moment of their breakthrough. It is the experience of maximum resistance arriving just before maximum release. In the natural world, the moment of greatest pressure in a birth is the moment just before emergence. The pressure does not mean the thing is not coming. The pressure means it is almost here. If you have been experiencing unusual pressure lately, unusual resistance, unusual difficulty, that is not a sign that the massive thing has been taken away. That is a sign that you are in the moment just before it arrives. The third form of resistance is the comparison trap. The temptation to measure your timeline against the timeline of someone else whose story you can see from the outside. What you cannot see is how long that person waited in rooms where nobody was watching. What you cannot see is the specific configuration of their preparation and how different it is from yours. Your timeline is not delayed. Your timeline is custom. It was written for the specific weight of what is being placed in your hands, and no other timeline is comparable to it. The moment you stop measuring your story against someone else is the moment your story starts to move with the clarity it was always meant to have. Now let me bring you a figure from sacred history that I want you to hold in your mind as we continue. His name was Joseph. He was given a dream at 17 years old that described a future so significant that his own family could not accept it. And then the preparation began, not in the way anyone would have designed it. He was put in a pit. He was sold. He was taken to a foreign land. He was placed in prison for a crime he did not commit. Every chapter looked like an ending. Every door that closed looked like a final door. And then one morning, without warning, at the age of 30, everything changed. In a single day, he went from the prison to the palace. In a single day, the dream that had been given 13 years earlier arrived in full. The most important detail in that story is not the palace. The most important detail is the pit, because the pit was not punishment. The pit was positioning. Every place Joseph was taken that looked like the wrong direction was actually a training ground. giving him exactly what he would need to steward what was coming. The prison taught him administration. The foreign land taught him language and culture. The years of waiting gave him a character that could not be corrupted by the power he was about to receive. Your pit was not a mistake. Your prison was not a punishment. Every place you have been that felt like the wrong direction was actually the right preparation for the specific thing that is approaching. There is a second picture I want you to hold alongside Joseph. It is the image of a seed in winter. A seed placed in the ground in autumn enters a season that looks, from the outside, completely identical to death. It is dark, it is cold, it is still. There is no visible evidence of anything happening. Anyone who did not understand seed biology would walk past that ground and see nothing. And yet, underground, the most complex and irreversible process of transformation is underway. The outer shell is being broken down. The root structure is forming. The architecture of what the seed will become is being assembled in the dark, in the silence, in a way that cannot be seen but cannot be stopped. That has been your season. Not death, not abandonment, deep formation. And just as the seed has no choice about when spring arrives, you do not need to manufacture the arrival of what is coming. The seasons turn on a schedule that does not require your management. Your only task is to remain in the ground, to hold the position. And you have been doing that. You have stayed in the ground through the winter that was longer than you expected. Spring is not coming. Spring has arrived. Now let me close the loop that has been open since the beginning of this message. I told you there was something discovered in scientific research that most people who care about these things have never been told about. Something that connects back to a Nobel Prize. Something simple in its application but profound in what it explains. I asked you to hold the question of why your mind sometimes feels foggy or disconnected from the sharpness you know is inside you. I want to tell you now why I waited until this moment to bring it forward. Because what they found is not just information, it is a solution. And a solution only becomes useful once you understand the full shape of the problem it solves. You now understand the shape. Here is what you need to understand clearly before the next part of this message. The human brain was designed to operate with both hemispheres working in synchronized connection. When that synchronization is active, the mind functions at a level that most adults have not experienced since early childhood. Clarity arrives without effort. Decisions that were confusing become obvious. Connections that were hidden become visible. The ability to perceive what God has placed near you is restored to its full capacity. This is not a spiritual metaphor. This is a neurological reality that was documented by Nobel Prize research in 1981. And the reason this matters for everything we have been discussing is this. The massive thing approaching your life will arrive whether your hemispheres are synchronized or not. But the depth at which you are able to receive it, recognize it, and walk into it fully is directly connected to the state of your mind. You do not want to be standing at the door of the most significant chapter of your life with a receiver that is operating below its designed capacity. And there is a specific way to address this that I am going to share with you now. Do you remember the question I asked you to hold at the beginning of this message? Here is the answer.